My Lords, it's always a pleasure to follow the Honourable Lord Winston. If my family, or the state, or the church were to insist that I be homosexual, but I am not homosexual, that would not only be ridiculous, but clearly detrimental to both my physical and mental well-being. But that is effectively what conversion therapy seeks to do in reverse. And that is what this bill seeks to stop. Practices which work to cure or change or remove an individual's rights over their own feelings and sense of themselves. And the dangers for LGBT people of an intervention which purpose is to make them averse to their own natural feelings is dangerous and it is cruel. Now, during the coalition, I was a Home Office and an Equalities Minister for 2 years under Theresa May. And during that period, I was both the originator and architect of the same-sex marriage law, and also I produced the first transgender action plan in the United Kingdom. So I worked extensively with both the LGB and T communities, and indeed the religious communities. And I have some issues with the religious communities, or some of the religions, who have, in my view, quite a lot to answer for. At one point, I had an article in the Telegraph, and I wrote accurately that the church did not own marriage. The torrent of emails I received the next day were a salutary example, not of love and charity and hope, but of the hatred and vitriol that the LGBT community bear on a daily basis. All manner of hideous bile against homosexuality rained down on me, how I was undermining marriage, how people would marry dogs, tables, their relatives, or multiple groups of human beings, amongst many other absurd missives. And my message, which was also in the article about love, acceptance, and compassion, and my plea not to polarize the debate, clearly never landed. And the great organized religions of the world went into overdrive. Cardinal Keith O'Brien on the Today programme said, if marriage can be redefined so that it no longer means a man and a woman, but 2 men and 2 women, why stop there? Why not allow 3 men or a woman and 2 men to constitute a marriage? Within a year, Cardinal O'Brien had to resign after allegations of inappropriate sexual activities alleged by 3 priests and 1 former priest. And there were many leading religious institutions and religious leaders who said the most hideous, vile, unkind things about homosexuality. And I bring this to this chamber because while this is a measured debate, and my noble friend has introduced it in a measured way, in the secret recesses of our land and other lands, conversion therapy can be a hideous process. And I received multiple death threats. But since same-sex marriage came into being, I have to say, no, the world is still turning, apparently. I also worked very closely with the trans community to produce the first trans action plan ever in this country. Then, and this was 14 years ago, trans was barely heard about. It hadn't yet become a punch bag as part of culture wars, and the action plan then was largely focused on access to medical care because there was so little in place for that community. My Lords, I have never met a community so vulnerable and so up against what must be one of the hardest situations to find yourself in. And they are a community that needs to be supported, not vilified. Because the changes that may be made during gender transition are so serious, it is right for us to ensure that care is taken, and particularly when a child presents as gender dysphoric. There is no legal surgery in this country before the age of 18. But it may actually be the case that puberty blockers are beneficial for a boy who is definitely trans, who will later become female, so that he does not have to later face the issues of having gone through puberty and having developed the masculine features which later would be so challenging for him in his new identity. There is a genuine and great need for services to support young people who are expressing gender dysphoria. And it is a great shame that the Tavistock failed in this duty. And fail it clearly did. But the need, the desperate need, remains, and the current provisions are nowhere near good enough. There absolutely must be available developmental psychotherapists who can work with children who need proper support. And with something as fundamental as your very being, that means sessions every week over whatever period is needed. And such a developmental psychotherapist or other appropriate care support is there not to advocate for or against anything, but to hold that child safe until they find their own way forward, without bias or prejudice or preconceived rights or wrongs, without the influence of religion or societal norms or anything, just the best interests of the individual and their well-being and their mental health. I am so glad that my noble friend Baroness Burt won the ballot and was able to bring forward this important bill to stop the hideous and dangerous practice of conversion therapy.